People who separated/divorced within 1 year of getting married. When did you know it was a mistake? She went out for girls' night and met a new friend named Nicole at a bar. Started texting her a lot, then going to hang out now and then. We had a baby at home, and she kept trying to go hang out with this girl from another town over with no last name, whom I was not allowed to meet. His real name was Wesley. And here I thought she was just going to turn out to be a lesbian. A cousin of mine divorced her husband after 6 months. She knew when we had to pick her up from her home, after having been recently beaten. That day, we packed up all of her stuff, and never let her go back. I'm happy that you guys could be there for her and help her get out. Hope she is doing well now. She decided she was in love with her stepbrother a month after we got married. I'm pretty sure I watched a preview of a scene with the same plotline last night. Yeah, the movie Clueless. Not me but my dad. He got back from his honeymoon and went back to work. He came home and something felt off when he walked in the door. She wasn't home when she never ever failed to be home when he got there. When she got back he mentioned that it was weird that she had been out and asked if she went somewhere. She dodged his questions at first, but eventually she admitted that she'd quit her job and was planning on using him as a cash cow. He tried counseling and asked her to get her job back, but she always brushed him off and never took him seriously. He threw in the towel 7 months later and she started trying to fix things. But it had been 7 months of him trying to fix things and she had no interest. So he filed for divorce and went on to achieve his lifelong dream. He dated and then married his middle school crush, my mom. 28 years strong. Or what? Happy it worked out for him. My brother died a week after the wedding, and after about 2 months, he told me that was just too big of a thing to happen in the beginning of marriage. I tried for 6 more months and then just gave up. I'm sorry about your brother. I'm sorry your husband wasn't supportive. That's kind of a dick move. To say your grief is too much of a drag for me, but it sounds like you weren't a great match in the first place. When I found out he had $500k in debt that he hadn't told me about beforehand. Yes, we had a prenup. He just lied about it on the prenup . I don't know anything about prenups, but would that invalid it? Yes. My middle got married the first time when she was really young. Left him a month later. Turns out he was a raging alcoholic. She had no idea because her family was super overprotective and they were never really allowed to spend time together alone before they got married. Who knew spending time with someone could be the key to knowing if they are a good partner? When she pulled a knife a month in, I still stayed for a full year like an idiot. Not an idiot. Glad you got out. Relationships can make your brain do the craziest mental gymnastics to justify all the bullshit. Got married in late May. By August or September I found out from my dad that he was sexting my brother's wife, who was my bridesmaid at our wedding. She felt guilty and told my dad, who had to tell me. I forgave him like a dingus, and about a year and a half later I found pictures of him sucking 2 different dicks in our house, and also wearing quite a bit of my nice macup. All of this after we moved to Washington from Florida. It's been wild. We are obviously divorced now. A Florida man will always remain a Florida man, no matter where he's moved. You can take a man out of Florida, but you can never take the Florida out of the man. You can take the man out of Florida, but you can't take the penises out of his mouth. When I caught my new bride having a workplace affair while I was receiving cancer treatments, it was not a pleasant time for me. The day after the wedding, when he poked me in the chest and said, "You're going to do what I say, whether you like it or not." Big mistake. Wow. That is actually terrifying, because I know where this leads. I assume. Hope you got out of this situation. Less than a year into actively trying to get pregnant he got discouraged, gave up and started staying out until 4:15 AM with his coworker. He posted selfies on her couch on Snapchat and even went as far as asking her to marry him once he could get rid of me. He had 2 biological children, my stepchildren, that he abandoned at home with me while he was out doing this. The icing on the cake was that on my favorite holiday, while holding my brand new baby nephew in front of his entire family, he told me he wanted a divorce. I was gone in 2 weeks, left everything to him, and vanished. New number, new address, everything. Best choice I ever made. Jesus. He really believed that was the time to announce divorce. I hope his entire family was pissed at him too. I'm glad you're away from him now. That's the kind of person who is either a coward or insanely delusional. A couple of weeks into our marriage, the sex started to physically hurt. I went to my OB, and after a test or two, she informed me I had contracted chlamydia. That's when I knew. Turns out, my newlywed husband had been banging his coworker for months. Hopefully he didn't gaslight you and try to convince you that you had it before and it was dormant, and technically you gave it to him. That happened to one of my friends. Deplorable. A cousin of mine married someone who seemed like the perfect woman. They worked in the same store together, and he would brag about how his wife was getting promoted quickly in the company. A few months into the marriage, she tells him she's going out with friends for the evening. An hour or so later, my cousin gets a call from one of his friends. The friend saw her having dinner in a restaurant with the manager of the store that they both worked at. Once he confronted her about it, that was basically the end of the marriage. This was similar to a friend of mine. His wife spent years trying to alienate him from his friends. After they got married, they bought a house near his job. She decided she didn't like the commute to her job, even though it was practically the same, and started staying at her parents'. Friend finds out from her parents she hasn't been staying there. Turns out she was going out and partying with coworkers, then staying with an ex. Why people do this kind of thing, I can't understand why. Not me, but a friend of mine. They had been married about 6 weeks. She had just moved in when they returned from the honeymoon, and she was rearranging furniture, organizing closets, etc. One day while he was at work, she started pulling some of his boxes down from a closet shelf to make room for her things, and a box fell down accidentally, spilling hundreds of pictures of child porn. Divorced the pedo after reporting him to the military police. They were both in the military. Correct response. Not me, but a female friend knew 4-6 weeks into marriage. Her husband at the time basically spent a few years prior to marriage being a bit of a salesman to everyone. Once they got behind closed doors, his traditional marriage roots really came out. They both had fast moving careers, and while he was okay with her making money and having a career, he also expected her to cook, clean, take care of the dogs, etc., and never lifted a finger. He would just come home and pound drinks until dinner time. This is a good reason why you should live with someone before you get married to them. It's a trial period where you learn a lot about the other person. And take at least one vacation together. It's amazing what you learn about someone when they are outside their usual surroundings. I saw a Facebook meme that said something like, "Don't marry someone until you try to put up a brand new tent together." It makes a lot of sense actually. Testing out their ability to cooperate, follow instructions, handle stress, manage new things, experience new environments with unfamiliar challenges. IKEA furniture is a relationship pressure cooker. Build an IKEA table and immediately play a game of Monopoly. If you don't make it, don't get married. Not me, but my brother. We grew up on a ranch. Bro's girlfriend comes from the city, but during visits to the ranch, she dives right in, helping our mom around the house and participating in all the stuff we do: horseback riding, ATVs, etc., and claiming and appearing to love it. Brother so happy his city gal is compatible with the ranch lifestyle he grew up in. Even though he is now working in the city and their life will be in the city, he just loved that she was able to connect with him that way, and more importantly, with his family. They date for /18 months, make many visits to the ranch, and all is well. She insists that she wants to have her wedding at my parents' home. My folks go all out, have both families there. Everyone has a great time. The next morning, we have a send-off breakfast for the couple. They head to the airport for their honeymoon. My mom and bride's mom are visiting afterward, and bride's mom mentions she's glad my mom had no hard feelings, that her daughter and my brother will no longer be coming out to the ranch. My mom is like, "What do you mean?" Bride's mom says, "Oh, I thought Laura told you that having the wedding here was her gift to you to have your son home one last time with all his family here." My mom goes white as a sheet. We all are stunned. We are confused as to whether my brother knows this, and more importantly, has agreed to this. My other brother, who has his own history of family drama, texts our big bro saying, "Is it true that this is your last time visiting mom and dad?" And big bro texts back, "What are you talking about?" Middle bro says, "Ask your new wife." Needless to say, the honeymoon never happened. It turns out that his wife had been hiding her belief that that man leaves his family behind and becomes part of the woman's family. It was fully her intent to never visit my parents again, to spend all holidays at her parents' home, to have any future children only have relationships with her family, and on and on. My brother literally had no idea these were her beliefs/desires. To this day I don't know if she was evil or just clueless. They remained married for about a month until the divorce was final, but my bro never saw her again after the day after wedding day. What? Seriously, what? That was definitely quite a story to read, Anne. #WHAT. Not me, but my cousin and her husband met at work, both independent and career focused. When they got back from the honeymoon, he immediately started treating her like his mum and told her she would need to give up work to look after the house. No talk of that before the wedding at all. I think they lasted 4 weeks married. As my grandmother once told me, love is blind, but marriage sees 20/20. That's good grandma advice. Knew before we even got married. Spoke about how I thought it didn't feel right with my family a couple months before the big day, but was told it was just cold feet and we'd be fine after the wedding. Almost a year later I was still miserable, so I left. Was an absolute shitstorm, but so worth it. My dad made a big deal when my siblings and I were each engaged that if we weren't sure about going through with it, we could call it off at any time. Even in the back of the church, when the ceremony was starting, he checked with us to verify we still wanted to do it. I always knew I wanted to go through with it, but it's still nice to really know it was my decision, and not something I was pushed into. And I know plenty of people who weren't really sure, but felt like it was too late to change their mind. Your dad sounds like a great guy. I don't know what kind of dad lets his kids get engaged to each other, though. I was thinking the same. That is why he kept asking. Not technically within a year, but when I returned from my first deployment, 10 months, I found out she had been sleeping with 3 of my buddies. Told her to pack her shit and get the fuck out. Jodie, Brody and Coddy strike again. Ho, don't bring me into this. Girl, I know. 1 month in she found out he cheated the day of the wedding. Not that it matters, but before or after the ceremony? After. IDKY. But somehow that seems worse. I saw the groom making out with his cousin at a wedding reception once. Wish I had never went outside for that cigarette. R/Russia or Alabama? Neither. Iowa. The Alabama of the Midwest. Not me, but a cousin. Me and my family were at her wedding reception sitting outside on a deck. My cousin comes out to sit with us for a bit and pulls out a pack of cigarettes. Her first words were, "Please don't tell him I smoke." They moved to California a few weeks later and divorced within a week of being there. Should mention they were engaged before she got out of high school. Dude probably knew she smoked. That stink permanently attaches to everything. Yep, any smoker who thinks people can't smell them, even after they've left the room, is living in denial. Not me, but my brother, and I think seeing her on top of her boss did the trick. She was just trying to get a raise. Oh, there was a raise. He had a massive erection, if you know what I'm saying. I got married shortly after tech school. About 4 months after, we made plans for her to move from NC to TX to join me, as in the military and can't move. 3 times I brought it up. 3 times she said she just needed more time to move. Finally, the 4th time she said she couldn't leave her friends and family to move across the country to start our lives together. A year later, we were divorced. Or well, I divorced her. She obviously didn't come down to Texas for that. Signed a waiver of citation to not get any news about it. So I basically got to divorce myself, which, after hearing how vindictive ex-spouses can be, I chalk that up to a blessing. Dodged a depender there. Friend of mine, very religious couple, never had sex before marriage, told H she was gay 2 weeks before their 1 year. I want this to be told her she was gay. That would be the start of a good joke, I bet. Guess what? I'm gay. I know I'm your wife. Oh yeah. I'm gay. I would hope so. Day after we got engaged, he changed. Then he uninvited my family to the wedding, said they would take my attention away from him. We lasted 3 months, and then I ran and hid. He uninvited your family? What the fuck? I'm so glad you got away. Sending internet cheers from somewhere across the globe. Just that crazy look in his eyes when I didn't do the dishes to his standards. Like he was going to hurt me. I should have left then, because I was right. I'm glad you're out now. I actually knew before. I was just too scared to do anything about it. Same. I convinced myself it was pre-wedding jitters. He is an extremely good man and I wanted to want it in him. When I was in Iraq and she posted a picture on Facebook of her and another guy laying in bed together, it was obvious that they had just hooked up. Don't get married to fix relationships. Pro-life tip. I commend every single one of you who got out within the year. I knew my husband was shit during that time too, but my dumbass put up with him for over 10 years because I wanted to try and make it work. Good job, guys.